I made a million mistakes. And I remember there were a few times when I thought, what the hell am I doing? I had an emergency surgery, ended up having a 6.5-hour surgery. And when I got out, I said, I'm going to do something about this.
Union Mission is getting a major boost in its fight against homelessness. We're talking a $1 million donation.
I gave a big gift to the hospital. All of a sudden, our sales are up everywhere. And we're not marketing now. We've given away over $30 million in the last 7 years. We're close to 2,000 employees now. Like 75% of them said they wanted to work with us because of our philanthropy. So here, customers want to shop with us because we're doing the right thing. And now people want to work with us because we're doing the right thing. And the people that do the right thing, they get rewarded.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are privileged to have the mastermind behind Parker's Kitchen, Greg Parker, here with us. Greg is a very successful entrepreneur, and we always like to bring you people that will benefit you intellectually and in your careers. And there couldn't be someone that suits the bill more than Greg. Greg, thanks for joining us today.
Real honor. Pleasure to be with you.
So, Greg, you have a really intriguing story, and this empire that you've built. It started from very humble beginnings, and I find that story very endearing. And I think when people hear stories like that, like yours, they find it very inspirational. Would you mind sharing a little bit how you got started in this industry?
Went to the University of Georgia on scholarship, graduated with honors. I was 21 when I got out. My father was a distributor, and he sold Amoco gas, and he had a few counties that he distributed Amoco to. I-95 had just opened. And so prior to I-95 being there, people would go up and down the Eastern Seaboard on 301 and Highway 17. So when I-95 opened, it was a big deal. My father had one exit in his territory that he could sell Amoco gas at. And he had started building a store. It went on for quite a while. Right out of the University of Georgia, I went back, went to work with my dad and finished the construction of the store and got it open. I opened that store and worked for 3.5 years without a day off. And I knew nothing. I knew nothing. I didn't know how to keep books. I didn't know how to buy merchandise. I didn't know how to create a schedule. I didn't know how to balance a checkbook. I was really someone who had no knowledge about what I was doing. I was a political science major, which was kind of a bullshit major in college. While I did well in school, it didn't prepare me for business. And so I learned in the doing. And like I say, I worked those 3.5 years, made a million mistakes, and figured out how to be best in class in our industry. So I guess my story is one of perseverance and stick-to-itness and just working hard, keeping my head down, and figuring things out.
So as you developed your business over time, what initially were the big mistakes that you made that you learned from?
Brady, there are two things that sort of motivated me. One was a profound fear of failure, because I felt like if the store was not successful, my family failed. And the other thing was just insecurity. So I was going to be willing to work harder than anybody else to ensure that we're going to have a good outcome. And, in hindsight, I absolutely had zero work-life balance. And I got to tell you, I don't think that anybody that wants to be an entrepreneur should go into it thinking they're going to have work-life balance, because you're not. I don't think you have that in the first decade that you go to work or the second decade that you go to work. But one thing is proven is that the foundation that you make in those first few years and first 20 years that you go to work are the foundation for what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And, by creating a great foundation allows you to have the ultimate gift in life, and that's the gift of flexibility, and to be able to do whatever you want to when you get to be my age. So I have been very fortunate. I made a million mistakes. I tried a million things. I had carpeted store. I had red, white, and blue carpeted store that my mother picked out. We were celebrating the bicentennial. If anybody thinks having carpeted stores is a good idea in a convenience store, they've lost their mind. But understand, I was cutting the grass and I was pumping the gas. It was all full service back then. You didn't have self-service. And then if somebody wanted to eat, I'd run in the back and wash my hands and start cooking. And like I said, I would make Reuben sandwiches and I'd have this much meat.
The dad
couldn't
would
figure out why I wasn't making money.
Yeah.
So a million mistakes. I bought a wrecker And if I had to go get somebody off the interstate, I had to lock the door to the store. So, kind of a dumbass move, because I was losing the customers I was really making money on, because the store would be locked when somebody come there. And so there were a million mistakes. And but what it did do, I'm going to tell you this, it created a foundation where I feel like I know as much or more than anybody in our industry about what we do. And, the convenience store industry is the largest retail entity in America. 50% of America shops in a convenience store every single day. I mean, that's just unbelievable. And, at our company now, we do 1 million transactions every single week. And, we get judged on every single transaction. Was the store clean? Was I greeted when I came in? Did the receipt tape come out of the pump when I got my gas? Did the Coke Zero come out of the fountain when I pushed it in? Where was the food hot? Whatever, were the bathrooms clean? And so with all the mistakes that I made, and there were many, I got really good at my craft over the years.
I had the privilege of working with some Exxon executives over the years and Exxon does something that I find really intelligent. They, if let's say you come up through acquisitions and you start getting in mid-level acquisitions, they'll put you over into a different department, and they move you around they'll move you to accounting, they'll move you to distribution, they'll move you to production. And they cross-train these people so that they understand the business completely. And as you were coming up, it sounds like you were kind of a one-man band there at the store. And yours was more of a trial by fire, but you were able to understand all those different areas of the business. And to do it the way you did it, I'm sure it came at a great personal sacrifice. What was your life like at that time?
Well, it wasn't great. I lived in a little community called Sunbury. I think there were about 6 people and there were about 20 dogs. I would run to work in the morning or run home from there, and it was several miles. It was a way for me to exercise, and I've always believed in being fit. And it was lonely, I mean, I would go and open up when it was dark, and I'd close up when it was dark, and it was exhausting. And I remember there were a few times when I thought, what the hell am I doing? This is crazy. But I actually talked to my dad about it. I said, I don't know if I can continue to do this. This is like 2 years in or something. He said, well, figure out what you want to do next before you make a decision. Thank God I didn't. I stuck with it. But, I want to refer to the thing that you said about Exxon. I ended up being chairman of BP's. It's called BP Amoco. Amoco was purchased by BP. Amoco called it a merger. BP called it an acquisition. And so I went on to be chairman for the U.S. for all the marketers, and we were 9.5 billion gallons. And I watched what major oil companies would do, and they would do the cross-training you're talking about. And I thought then, and I kind of think now, that's an odd thing to do. I would rather have unicorns that are incredibly good at downstream or upstream marketing or retail, rather than take all of these people and spend all this time cross-training them. If you have you have a pool of people that you're trying to grow your next CEO, I totally get that. But they did that. They did that with thousands of people.
Right.
And I would find that the people that would come in with the major companies that work with us, by the time they got good at what they were doing, they moved on. And I will tell you this too. When I was young and I could be in the presence of these people that were higher up, the work scale and the top level executives, I was mesmerized by it. I thought, these guys are gods. They're so much, and they're so bright, and they're so informed. And I got to tell you, as I was able to move up the ladder myself and interact with these people, I didn't have that same opinion. And I was usually surprised at some of the higher level executives. And, I thought they couldn't be a store manager for me. So it's interesting how life changed. My perception of life changed. My perception of these people changed.
When you talk about who you surround yourself with, and you kind of become who your friends are. If you hang around 7 felons, you'll be the 8th. If you hang around 7 millionaires, you'll probably be the 8th as well. Did you find people that inspired you and mentored you as you were going through that process, or were you kind of like a lone ranger?
I was a lone ranger to begin with. And then when I really accelerated is when I figured out what you just said. And I was a keynote for Georgia Southern for the business school there. And I actually said exactly what you did. Your 5 best friends are an accurate reflection of who you are. And I 100% agree with your point there. There were 2 things that have been incredibly important to me. One is that I joined a group called YPO, Young Presidents Organization. And to be in YPO, you had to be the president of an organization. By the time you're 40, you had to have, I forget, 100 employees and I don't remember what the numbers were when I joined, 40 years ago. But it surrounded you with a group of peers that were your accountability partners. And they were challenging you in everything you were doing in life, how to be a better husband, be a better parent, be a better CEO, be a better community person. And these people holding you accountable and surrounding yourself with a group of people that would inspire you was really a game changer for me. And the second group that I joined was my study group. And in study group, we had a group of CEOs that are all in the convenience store industry that were in non-competing areas. And what we did is we created our own study group, which is very different from most of the study groups. And we were badasses. And I was the original president of the group. And if somebody wasn't measuring up, I would go to them and say, listen, it's an honor to be in this group and it's a privilege, but it's a privilege that comes with responsibilities. Either you get your ass in gear or we're going to kick you out of the group. And we did kick out many people out of the group, but it created this brand that we had as a group where the really top performers wanted to be a part of our group. And so we would set goals in this. We would set metric goals. We would set growth goals, ways to reduce expenses, ways to grow gross profit dollars, strategies, marketing things. And this group really became sort of my outside board of directors. So it's first my YPO forum, and then it was my study group. And I got to tell you, I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for the help of those guys. And I'm still real close to them. 25 years later, we are, we go to our children's weddings and we help with whatever comes up. But I think you're right, Brady. If there's a message for your listeners, it is to find a group of people and try to, play it up. Be with smarter people, better people than yourself. What does they say? If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah. So I've been around a lot of executives, been around a lot of billionaires, people that have kind of traversed tremendous life experience to get to success. And I understand you need intellect, you need personability, you need to understand the human side of things. And I really find that you have to have you have to be a smart guy. You have to be good at your trade. But as I'm going on, I really start finding the area of focus that differentiates people is their motivation, where it comes from, and that motivation has to use the word persevere. You have to perseverate on your task. Like it's really almost a mental illness that you develop and you become one topic Willie, right? And what is it that motivated you? Because I've read a lot about your business and you've done things as far as customer service. People like your stores. You've distinguished yourself in a way that's different from your competition, and you have a pretty big footprint. What motivated you to accomplish all this?
Well, a few things. Like I say, fear of failure was the biggest motivator. It's so funny now when you hear people, they said, oh man, just embrace failure. When you stand up, you're one step further than you were when you fell down. And I'm thinking, hell no, I don't want to fail at anything. I'm going to try harder. I'm going to create a plan. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to try harder than anybody. I'm going to do the research. I'm going to expend the human capital and the financial capital to make sure that we're successful at what we're doing. And so I was just willing to work harder, but I've got to say that, I joined a fraternity when I was at the University of Georgia, and I ended up in the Atlanta Rich Boy Fraternity. And I was from a small town in South Georgia. I couldn't believe it when I would go home with my fraternity brothers, and they would have like a service entrance to their house, and they would have people dressed,
The butler's elevator. Yeah.
It was just unbelievable. And I was like, God, I can't believe people live like this. And, it built in me an eager want. They had houses at Sea Island. They were going to Europe with their families. That was just unimaginable. Where I lived, I remember this girl graduated from college and she was able to go to Europe. And they put the story on the front page of the newspaper. This girl
You got a little influence there. Yeah.
Yeah. So these Chi-Phis at the University of Georgia were mainly rich guys. So I wanted to have what they had. I didn't want to be spoiled. And I will tell you that really taught me a lesson with my kids. One of the most important things to me, and my children will all tell you this, was I did not want to raise children who were entitled. And if you raise children in a world of privilege, it's really a tough thing to do. And I've been an accountability parent, and I've got 3 incredible kids. They're not spoiled, and I'm really proud of them. But I didn't want to be that spoiled, entitled kid that came from the wealthy family. And I sure as hell didn't want my kids to be that.
You're in an extremely competitive industry, right? And who do you compete with in your mind? Are you competing with Greg, or are you competing with the other people in your market? How do you view that? Because you're right there in the front. That's the gladiator school where you work in.
I will tell you this. You're asking a really great question. I ended up being the chairman of the state of the industry for the convenience store universe for what's called NACS, the National Association of Convenience Stores, which is not national. It's actually international. And I was chairman of research for the industry for 5 years. I was chairman of technology 1 year, and I became chairman of the state of the industry. The state of the industry is when you're presenting all the financial metrics to the industry. And when I was chairman, we were able to move from surveys and publicly traded data to having a robust data source that we bought that was a repository of data that people reported to monthly. So the data was better and better and better. And so when I was chairman of that, or called it vice chairman, I decided to start doing top quartile comparisons. I want to see how we compared to, the other 75% of the industry and to that top quartile. And so then we would do that. We'd look at our numbers compared to the industry. And it was like, holy moly, we are so much better than this. It's unbelievable. So then we were able to look at top decile in the industry. So we look at the top 10%, and we have hundreds of metrics, hundreds. So then it was interesting. We were having a retreat with my team, and I contacted the keeper of the data, and I said, is it possible for me to compare myself, Parker's, against the top company in the industry in the United States? And she said, I wanted to compare to profit per location. Okay, so you couldn't say total profit. So how much you make per store and all the metrics that go into that. And she said, well, sure, we can do that. You can't know who they are. You can't know how many stores they have. You can't know what part of the country they're from. And I said, well, great. She called us back about an hour or two later. And actually, the guys that's now the CEO of my company was in the room with us when we got this call from this lady. And she said, there's a problem. And I said, what is a problem? She said, you are number one. And I went, what? We're the number one most profitable company in the United States based on store level data. And she said, you are. So I said, well, can we compare then to the next 5 to see how we line up against the next 5, most profitable stores. Now, I can't tell you we're number one today, because that's often affected by what gas margins are doing. And, different parts of the country have much bigger profits. If you want to know where the highest profits are, they're in Massachusetts and California. So the states that have the highest regulations, the consumer gets screwed. So their profits are way higher than what we are in the Southeast. And so it was like, wow, I can't believe, because there's so much that we're doing wrong and there's so much that we can learn. And the thing I've done now is I have a board of directors that are three of the smartest retailers on the planet Earth. And so we run everything we do through this board of directors now. And I am so fortunate. My head of operations says we have the Mount Rushmore of retail.
That's cool.
Which I think's fun. But, data matters. The people you associate with matters. And to be able to look at a robust data set to give you a scorecard for success is one of the keys to being a truly successful company.
So we're talking about how to make your business successful, and you've been involved in communicating with a lot of entrepreneurs. You've been at this a long time. What are three things people can do in their business to improve it? And this is a very general question.
Yeah, so general question. And Brady, it depends on where you are in your business. When I first started in the business, what I wanted to do is have the best experience. The nicest stores, the cleanest bathrooms, the nicest landscape, and the greatest architecture. And as I progressed, I've learned that all of that really matters. But what really matters is your team. And so we very much want to be the best place to work. And it's been one of our goals, and you can see it here on my sleeve. So we won Best Place to Work last year by USA Today, which I was really, really, really proud of. It's something that we want to continue to do every year. We want our people to feel empowered. We want them to feel listened to. We want to pay better. We want to have better benefits. We want to have better training. So when I was at the beginning stages, I probably wasn't that good a boss. I mean, if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, it's like, why don't you think like the owner? Why can't you come up with the same solutions? Why did you do what you did? And, people aren't going to be like that. So over time, I've learned that you've got to create this learning, caring organization where people are going to take your business forward. So once you've got, the basic part of your business figured out and you want to move to the second level, which might be a better way to answer your question, I would say the number one thing is to have a scorecard for success. And you've got to understand your business better than anybody else. And let me tell you, the thousands of toilets that I've cleaned and parking lots that I've cleaned and grass that I've cut and gas that I've pumped and hamburgers that I've cooked and chicken that I've fried have helped me become really good at what I do, because I know what it's like for the people that work for us. But if you understand your metrics, and in the retail business, we talk about above the line and below the line. So what is it that's driving gross profit dollars? What are you doing with your gallons? What are your store sales? What are your kitchen sales? What are your margins on these things? What is your basket like for every transaction that you have? How can you grow your transactions? So if you think about what's above the line, that's moving gross profit, and a lot of it has to do with marketing. And because, we pretty much sell the same stuff. Most convenience stores sell basically the same stuff. And you got to figure out how you're going to differentiate yourself to be the best at growing those gross profit dollars above the line. The second part is understanding your expenses, and we call that below the line. So what is your cost? What are your direct store operating expenses? What are your G&A expenses? What are your store labor expenses? What is your gross profit dollar per labor dollar? What is your gross profit dollar per labor dollar? Looking at all the metrics that affect the transactions. So you've got to be balancing what's above the line and below the line. And if you can create a scorecard for success, you've got your report card. And then refer to it as often as you can. Weekly, biweekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. And so I have created, as I've transitioned from CEO to executive chairman, which just happened a few months ago, I've created my own CEO report so I can constantly see what's going on in big picture numbers, so I know what's going on in the business. So I think that's crazy, crazy important. And I believe too, with these metrics, it gives you the ability to understand what you're doing. So we decided we wanted to increase our transactions in our stores. So in doing that, we expanded our hours in our stores. So we were open from like 6 to 3. So let's open from 4 to 7 and see what we can do. If we can drive more transactions in the 5 to 6 or the 4 to 5 or the 3 to 4 or 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7 hours. So we did that. Then a lot of our food service is grab and go. So we decided to double the amount of grab and go items that we had in our stores so that we created a bunch and then we could back into what our numbers were going to be. Well, that was an expensive experiment. That cost over $600,000 to do that. But at least it gives us the baseline. So that's not failure. That's just an expense that you're going to use to see if you can then further drive gross profit dollars. But by having the scorecard, it allows you to have the numbers that you need as an effective CEO to be able to become more successful. The other thing that I would say is you've got to adopt an attitude of being a disruptor, being an innovator, being a person that learns how to optimize the profitability in your company. And one of the things that we've done as a company is we have been incredibly innovative, and we're going to continue to be incredibly innovative. I took the Strengths Finder test, which I bet you $1 you've taken. And my number one strength is probably your number one strength, and that's competition. I am a competitive son of a gun. My second strength is that I'm a futurist. So I'm always looking over the horizon to see what's coming next. So as a company, the curiosity that I have and that my team has really proven for us to be really great at what we do. So we've looked at ways to be innovative. We've looked for ways to create trip drivers in our company. And we've done things, well before other people. That doesn't mean that you have to be the first to do everything. Sometimes that means being an early adopter, that you see what somebody else is doing and that you try to take that and optimize it, make it better, to amplify what they're doing so you can increase your sales or reduce your expenses. And so I think you've got to have a culture of innovation. And, the other thing that I would tell you that's really been incredibly influential for us as a company and for me as an individual is creating this idea that we are a company that gives back. And quick story, I had an emergency surgery. I was on the foundation board of the biggest hospital here. I was in so much pain, I couldn't find the hospital. I finally got there. I had a horrible experience as I was being triaged and checked into the hospital. I ended up having a 6.5-hour surgery. And when I got out, I said, you know what? I'm going to do something about this so that nobody else has that experience that I just had. So I worked with the Savannah College of Art and Design, and we looked at EDs around the country to see what the top emergency rooms were doing in the country. And I was on the foundation board, and we were going to redo the emergency department. So I gave a big gift to the hospital, and I also did the research that we did with the Savannah College of Art and Design, and we were looking at different things to try to focus on to find out from other emergency departments what we could do better. And so we put together a curriculum for a semester, and then took our findings and gave it to Memorial Hospital at the time. And a few months later, 6 months later, my then CFO and I were talking. I said, Terry, I don't know what's going on. All of a sudden, our sales are up everywhere. And we're not marketing. We don't have anything special going on. What do you think it is? Has the economy changed? And Terry said, Greg, I know what it is. And I said, what is it? She said, I go to Publix, and I get stopped by like 6 people. And they say, thank you for what y'all are doing as a company. Thank you for making this difference. I went to the emergency department. Wow, is that an improved experience? Thank you so much. And so, our customers gave back to us because we were just doing the right thing. And fast forward now, we've given away over $30 million in the last 7 years to different things. And, I'm at a place now in my career where I can do that. I'm not fearful of failure now because I've clearly made it. But, what I'm going to be doing with, the next years of my life is giving away a lot of money. And the thing that we've discovered is our customers want to do business with us. They want to give back to us because we're giving back. And the crazy thing is the more money they spend with us, the more money we have to give back. And the other thing that is great is that we have Founders Day lunches. I've got one coming up next week. And I will have, we're close to 2,000 employees now. And so when we have new people come in, they come in and have lunch with me and with the new CEO, who was the president, Brandon Hoffman, who's been with me 28 years. He started as a night shift clerk. And now he's a CEO of a $1 billion company. I am so proud of him. But that tells you the opportunities that exist here at Parker's. So we're sitting around our conference room, and we've got, 12, 15 people in the room. And we said, what is it that made you want to come work for Parker's? And Brady, like 75% of them said they wanted to work with us because of our philanthropy. Well, it's like, oh my God. So here customers want to shop with us because we're doing the right thing. And now people want to work with us because we're doing the right thing. And I think it's really important for entrepreneurs to know that you can't be so competitive and you're trying to make money that you're not thinking about the communities where you're doing business. And the people that do the right thing, give back, they get rewarded.